Okay. Hello, everyone. We're Group 6. Our group members are Dane Nideski, Jenny Velasquez, Ludwika Won, and myself, Tessie Vasquez. For our Cultural Immerse project, we chose to focus on the Latinx LGBTQ plus adolescents or youth. This population group experiences what we call intersectionality, meaning their identities overlap across culture, race, gender, sexuality, and in many cases, immigration status. These overlapping identities create combined pressures that strongly impact their mental health and development. Today, we'll share their experiences, how they compare to other youth in the United States, the historical and current struggles they face, the acts of resilience they show, and the way we can support this population in health and thrive. Here is my friend Diane with the first part.
Thank you. While all young people face challenges growing up, LGBTQ plus adolescents, and especially Latinx LGBTQ plus youth, often carry heavier burdens. These struggles aren't just personal, they're shaped by structural, cultural, and social factors that can make life even harder. These, some of the mental health struggles that were mentioned in the research I found were anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, fear, immigration stress, cultural expectations, violence, family rejection, isolation, racism, discrimination, and substance abuse. But the good news is when families and schools and communities offer support and understanding, those young people do far better and they feel more accepted and valued and stronger and healthier. Today, we're going to talk about something that every one of us cares about deeply, the well-being of our youth. And no matter where a young person comes from or how they identify, we all benefit when our children grow up safe, stable, and healthy in mind, body, and spirit. And that's why this conversation matters. Next slide. The reality for many young people in this population is that they face some serious challenges. They are more likely to struggle with anxiety, depression, and even thoughts of suicide. Too often they experience rejection from their own families, which takes a heavy toll on their mental and emotional well-being. Many face discrimination, bullying in their schools and neighborhoods, leaving them feeling isolated and without the kind of support every young person deserves. Because of that isolation, they often have fewer safe places to turn and fewer trusted adults that they can rely on. These pressures can also lead to higher risks of substance abuse and make them more vulnerable to physical violence, including sexual assaults. These are tough realities, but ones we can't ignore if we truly care about building stronger, healthier communities for everyone. Next slide. Research gives us some clear insights into what truly makes a difference. Tessie, I think you need to mute your mic.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Research gives us some clear insights into what truly makes a difference. The strongest protective factor for these young people is family acceptance, knowing they are loved and supported at home. We also know that schools with caring and affirming teachers and counselors lead to much better outcomes for Latinx LGBTQ plus youth. Their challenges often come from the intersection of their race, culture, and identity, which can place them at greater risk for mental health struggles. The evidence also shows that peer support, especially from others who share similar backgrounds and experiences, is a powerful source of strength. And finally, inclusive and fair policies in schools and communities promote well-being for everyone, helping to create safer environments where all young people can thrive. Next slide. When we look at how this group compares to others, the data tells a clear story. Much of what we know comes from the Trevor Project, which is an American nonprofit dedicated to understanding and preventing suicide among LGBTQ youth. Their mission is to provide crisis support, prevention services, and resources that help parents and educators create safe and welcoming environments. The research shows that Latinx LGBTQ plus youth face higher risks than both their non-Latinx LGBTQ peers and also their just non-LGBTQ youth. Their mission is to provide crisis support, prevention services, and resources that can help parents and educators create safe and welcoming environments. The research shows that Latinx LGBTQ plus youth face higher risks than both their non-Latinx I think I repeated that, sorry. They're more likely to struggle with anxiety and depression, to think about suicide, to turn to alcohol or drugs, and to experience rejection or even violence. What's especially concerning is that they're less likely to receive consistent mental health care and support, even though they need it the most. And these numbers aren't just statistics, they actually represent real young people who could thrive if they had the right support from their family, their school, and their community. And now I'm followed by Tessie.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to talk about history. Historically, Latin LGBTQ plus people have faced many layers of oppression, starting with colonization. Christian European settlers imposed very strict gender roles, erasing many indigenous gender identities, including people who were respected and prized before, like people that today will be considered transgender, non-binary, or two-spirit. This created a long-lasting stigma around gender and sexuality in this country and in Latin America. In the 1900s, many Latin American countries also criminalized homosexuality. This made it dangerous for LGBTQ plus people to live openly, forcing many to hide who they were to avoid arrest, violence, or public humiliation. These laws didn't just create fear in the moment, they passed down shame, silence, and stigma across generations in Latin culture, shaping how many families and communities view gender and sexuality for decades. Cultural traditions like machismo and Marianismo are also play a negative role. These beliefs expect men to act very masculine and women to be submissive. For LGBTQ youth, these expectations often lead to rejection inside their own families, the people that should be protecting them and accepting them in this world. And in the United States, immigration laws have also created more barriers for this population. For many years, immigration policies unfairly target Latin communities, making it harder for them to enter or stay in the country safely. There were even moral character rules that deny LGBTQ immigrants asylum, visas, and citizenships. It's important to understand that this part of the community, being immigrants, they are not only coming here for work and to make a better life, but they're escaping persecution, bullying, abuse, and rejection in their own home countries. In many parts of Latin America, LGBTQ people face threats, violence, or complete lack of protections from police, the government, and the communities and families. For many, coming to the United States becomes a way to save their lives and find safety. So historically, this group has faced cultural, legal, and social oppression for centuries. And the current days is still a lot of oppression for this group. A major issue is family rejection. Many Latins LGBTQ youngs are kicked out or forced to hide who they are. This increases the risk of homelessness, prostitution as a survival sex, and mental health problems. In immigration detention centers, transgender and queer immigrants often face violence, solitary confinement, the denial of gender affirming care. Language barriers are also a problem, and fear of deportation also make it difficult to access therapy, school support, and medical care. Young people often have to navigate these systems alone. And all of these struggles overlap racism, homophobia, transphobia, and xenophobia. This combination leads to higher rates of anxiety, depression, and identity-based trauma among Latin's LGBTQ plus youth. So overall, both past and present systems continue to shape the challenge and make it difficult for this community to face every day. Next, I have our friend Jenny.
I will go over the cohesion and conflicts with Latinx LGBTQ plus community. Family is a source of resilience, which is strong relationships with parents and caring adults, which foster resilience, improve self-esteem, and reduce risks of depression or victimization. Next, I went over the peer and online support networks, which can both be cohesion and conflict, which friendships and digital spaces create belonging and solidarity, but tensions still rise when it comes to cyberbullying or exclusion occurs. Cultural identity as a protective factor. Ethnic pride and cultural ties act as protective factors, which it can lower suicide risks and strengthening coping against intersecting stigmas. Historical solidarity movements, which also can be cohesion and conflict. Feminist alliances, such as examples as NOW, and Latinx liberation groups, which is Mi Familia Vota, in English means My Family Votes, highlight solidarity across diverse identities. While these coalitions expand collective power, disagreements can emerge over priorities or strategies for liberation. The conflicts in Latinx LGBTQ+ community, as well as family rejection and misalignment, results in a large number of LGBTQ+ children enduring rejection or a lack of understanding in their homes. The discrepancy between adolescent identities and familiar expectations lead to despair, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. Even when family wish to support you, failing to inform your gender or sexual orientation can create long-term trauma. Schools can also be useful and destructive in terms of harassment and unequal access. Bullying, harassment, and exclusion are more common among LGBTQ+ children, especially Latinx and gender students. By denying vulnerable children safe spaces, unequal access to affirming resources, such as GSAs or inclusive curriculum, exacerbates inequality. According to Gonzalez, Latinx LGBTQ+ children from immigrant households commonly face two challenges: overcoming language barriers to mental health care and dealing with stigma in their cultural community. The lack of multilingual providers, combined with the fear of deportation or prejudice, erodes trust in institutions, resulting in isolation. Media erasure and stereotyping. The Latinx LGBTQ community is routinely marginalized or stereotyped in mainstream media. Young people believe their representation is limited, either neglected or reduced to negative stereotypes. This lack of actual visibility reduces self-esteem, reinforces societal bias, and limits public understanding of their lived experiences. Next slide, please. The individual resistance examples identified include digital coping mechanisms, self-advocacy in crisis situations, and identity affirmation despite stigma. I'll go over the acts of resistance in both individual and collective Latinx LGBTQ+ youth, and having the option to choose from digital coping strategies, such as a variety of apps such as the Calm, BetterHelp, and Headspace apps, online therapy, or peer forums is an act of individual resilience. This allows children to avoid stigma in traditional healthcare settings, where a young person feeling anxiety could use online therapy secretly and avoid stigma of being considered weak for seeking therapy in person. Self-advocacy in crisis settings involves using de-escalation and self-regulation skills to demonstrate individual agency while rejecting being defined by distress. Using grounding strategies in public, such as the 5-4-3-2-1 sensory grounding method, listing what they can see, hear, feel, smell, and taste. A child experiencing a panic attack in crowded classrooms can apply the strategy to resist being defined by the panic itself and highlight their capacity for self-regulation, even when outside evaluation. Setting boundaries with authority figures and de-escalating conflict with peers are also excellent instances of self-regulation. Identity affirmation despite stigma. Declaring one's identity in a hostile environment is a powerful act of resistance against erasure. For example, a Latina student may wear traditional clothing to school despite peers mocking her heritage, expressing pride in her culture. Similarly, a non-binary adolescent introducing themselves with "my pronouns are they, them" challenges invisibility and validates their existence in spaces that dismiss gender diversity. Personally, I connect with the act of speaking one native's language in public. As an immigrant woman, I continue to speak in Spanish with my family in stores, even when others roll their eyes or make their comments. This choice resists assimilation pressures and affirms my linguistic identity. I identified several forms of collective resistance: parental and family support, solidarity-based collective action, peer and community networks, online collectives, advocacy during public health crisis, and public awareness campaigns. Parental and family support is a form of resistance is relational, rooted in family networks. Supportive caregivers help young people resist oppression, showing that resistance often emerges the collective family strength rather than individual effort. Solidarity-based collective action was where heterosexual feminist women join in LGBTQ+ movements, recognizing that liberation is interconnected. Coalition building through protest marches, policy advocacy, campus alliances, shared storytelling, and global organizing expands resistance beyond one group, confronting systemic oppression by framing freedom as collective rather than isolated. Peer and community networks and Latinx and LGBTQ+ youth develop critical consciousness for connectivity, decoding exclusion, and building networks of belonging. These connections foster resilience and promote healthy equity. Online collective resistance. LGBTQ teens use digital spaces to share stories, resist cyberbullying, and form affirming communities. These online collectives provide resilience in both virtual and real-world hostile environments. Advocacy during public health crisis. During COVID-19, transgender and LGBTQ colleges organized and demanded mental health support. Their collective lobbying ensured visibility and institutional responsiveness during a time of crisis. Public awareness campaigns. Surveys and media coverage highlighting the decline in LGBTQ+ youth mental health amplify collective voices. These campaigns fight for structural change by bringing hidden struggles into the public view. And lastly, the individual acts of resistance like affirming identity or speaking one's truth are powerful, but when combined with collective resistance through family support, peer networks, advocacy, and public campaigns, LGBTQ youth build resilience that challenges stigma and transforms communities. And together, these forms of resistance show the survival not only personal, but communal. And I'll be followed by Tessie.
Yeah, as acts of resilience, even with all these challenges, Latin LGBTQ youth show incredible resilience. Many young people build strong bicultural and queer identities, learn to accept themselves with pride, even when their families or communities do not. They share their stories through art, writing, and poetry, turning pain into empowerment. When families are not supportive, they often seek safe adults like mentors, teachers, or social workers who affirm them. Many also navigate life on their own with remarkable strength, learning English, working hard in school, and building a future for themselves that they can be proud of. As a collective resilience act, I would say that community groups like Family and Q Latins provide legal support, emotional care, and safe space for LGBTQ plus Latinx people. Mutual aid networks also step in, helping with housing, food, hormones, and safety planning, showing how communities support each other when larger systems fail. Even with the historical oppression and ongoing challenges, Latinx LGBTQ plus youth continue to resist, rebuild, and rise with strength. Here is our friend Ludwika.
I will be talking about the stereotypes and representations in the mass media film against Latinos and Latinas LGBTQ plus youth community. Some stereotypes are that the LGBTQ plus and Latino youth characters are seen as characters are seen as compulsive. They have basically sexual behaviors that they're hyper sexually active since like they're in like youth. They cause drama and are emotionally unstable. And they have cultural conflict due to their identities. LGBT, some representations that they have is LGBTQ plus Latin youth often are seen as whitewashed or have white culture experiences. This is because all mainstreams of the LGBTQ plus media tends to center white experiences, marginalizing Latinos' voices and reinforcing the idea of queerness is predominantly white. They are often frequently included as sidekicks or lacking depth of development. This lack of development is a suppression to their identity because they're often reduced to the stereotypes rather than them being like the main character where they're being seen more less than like equals as like someone who's not a part of that minority. And they're also seen as not Latino enough or not queer enough if like they're not like I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. Followed by me in the next slide. Okay, so I'll talk about the supporting Latinos and LGBTQ adolescents, community and peer support, safe community spaces, promotes LGBTQ plus affirming organizations. Peer support, men, mentorship programs, and youth-led acceptance initiatives, faith and community engagement, educate faith groups to provide support.
Okay, and then I'll finish up with using social justice perspective means recognizing the structural barriers that Latinx LGBTQ plus adolescents face and working to create equal systems of support at every level of service delivery. And agencies like our audience can influence this by ensuring that services promote inclusion, cultural humility, and empowerment. And Ludwika talked about community and peer support. For families, counseling and education programs can guide parents toward understanding and acceptance, helping to reduce rejection and isolation. Family-focused interventions grounded in cultural respect can help bridge generational and cultural gaps. Within schools and community settings, agencies can advocate bilingual and culturally competent training for educators and staff so that every student feels respected and supported. Partnerships with LGBTQ plus affirming organizations can create safe spaces and visibility for Latinx LGBTQ plus youth. And then at the individual level, agencies can expand access to mental health and outreach services such as bilingual, culturally responsive, and LGBTQ affirming mental health care. Providing mentorship programs and youth-led initiatives gives young people positive role models and helps them build resilience and self-worth. And then Luika is going to do our closing statement.
Okay. Sorry, I just have my notes on my phone. These challenges facing the LGBTQ plus and Latinx youth may seem big, but the solutions start small, with each of us choosing to care, to listen, and to create a place of belonging. Real change doesn't come from one law or one program. It comes from people like us in our own families, schools, and communities, choosing to make a difference. Together, we can make sure every young person knows they matter. And this concludes our presentation. Thank you for watching.